This video is going to look at why Henry VIII broke from the Catholic Church and made his own Protestant Church of England. Our starter task today is to think about why is religion important in the early modern era. Now, for this, you need to think contextually, so things going on at the time. So we've done quite a lot about why religion is important to people. So feel free to pause the video, do yourself a date, title, and bullet point down some ideas for the task. So some of the ideas you should have come up with include explaining everything. Nowadays, we understand germs cause disease and weather and climate causes crops to fail. But they didn't know that in the early modern era. They explained everything through religion, and that's why it was important, because it helped them make sense of the world. Everyone pretty much was also Christian in the early modern era, so it was an important way of identifying yourself as a person. And of course, everyone wanted to get to heaven, so religion is important because it offers the way to heaven. And finally, there's quite a lot of laws. Probably the one you'll be most familiar with is Mary I, or Bloody Mary, who's actually Henry's first child. She burns Protestants alive because they were the wrong religion. So if you just happen to miss off any of those, just pause the video and bullet point it down on your paper, please. Okay, so on this next slide, we're going to introduce you to a very famous song, which I'm sure you have heard already. This is the Horrible History version, which in my humble opinion is the best version. So go ahead and type that URL into the search bar, or if your teacher's feeling particularly nice, they might put it in the chat box for you. And for each wife, and as I'm sure you're aware, there are 6 of them, you need to write their name and what happened to them. And if you know the song, you'll probably be able to fill it in already. So pause this video, watch the other video, and write down the name of each wife and what happened to them. So just to very quickly recap to make sure we're all on the same page, we're going to be paying particular attention to Henry's first and second wives today. So his first wife is Catherine of Aragon. Now she was previously married to Henry's older brother, who actually died in battle. And she and Henry were married for 24 years, so a very long time, particularly in the early modern era. And they have one daughter called Mary, who, as I said, goes on to be Mary I, or Bloody Mary. But he then meets Anne Boleyn in 1526. She refuses to be a consort and will only accept marriage. And she only has one child, Elizabeth, when she and Henry do eventually get married. And we know her as Elizabeth I. And if you are thinking about taking history GCSE, then there is an entire unit dedicated to what Elizabeth I does. So to go through what actually happened, Henry VIII wanted to marry Anne for lots of reasons we're going to look at in a minute. But in the Catholic Church, which is just the Christian church in England that has been around for centuries, divorce is not allowed. So he wants to marry Anne, but he can't because he can't divorce his first wife, Catherine. So Henry leaves the Catholic Church, he becomes Protestant, which does allow for divorce. And this is a massive change. Absolutely huge. England has only ever been Catholic. And I'd like you in the chat box on Teams to explain how people would feel if the king suddenly changed their religion. It's quite a dramatic thing to happen, so please just pause the video, type in the chat box, how would people feel about the king changing their religion? So we're going to have a think now about why Henry decides to break from Rome, why he decides to stop being Catholic for the first time ever. So you're going to now need to take up a whole A4 page with this layout, but please, for all of our sanity and timing, you need to do this very, very quickly. So literally 10 seconds, draw 3 rough circles that overlap, so there's bits in the middle. Like seriously, 15 seconds, draw the circles and label them. So on the screen now are 9 reasons that Henry decided to change the religion of England. Your task is to go through each of them and put them onto your Venn diagram. Some of them might go in more than one circle, which is why I made you overlap them. And if you think it will go into all of the circles, you can pop it right in the middle. This video does go through the answers in inverted commas after, but don't worry too much if it's not correct. I'm more interested in your kind of analysis abilities rather than getting it right, so don't stress. So you are going to need to write these out. If we were in school, I would give you these printed, but alas, we aren't. So we'll do the first one together. So Henry wanted to continue his family name and legacy, so he needed a son. And Catherine couldn't give him one, and so he needed a divorce to marry someone who could. Now, you could put that in power, because it's all about having a son to carry on the name. You could also put it in religion, because obviously Catholicism doesn't allow for divorce. Or you could be smart and put it in the middle, which is what I've done. So you need to think about which of those they relate to. And if you're stuck, try the ones in bold first, and then you might have a bit more of a sense about where to put the rest. And if you feel like a challenge, I would like you to type in the chat box, what is the greatest reason, what is the biggest reason Henry decided to stop being Catholic, and why? This is probably going to take you a good 15 minutes, so pause the video and get all of these 9 factors into the Venn diagram. Okay, so let's go through my personal opinion. If yours is slightly different, it's not the end of the world. So we've gone for the middle, for the one we did all together as a class. For power, I've thought about without an heir, it was hard for the king to hold power over a country. It would also make Henry, rather than the Pope in Rome, in charge of religion in England, and that gives him more control and status. In terms of religion, due to Anne's religious views, she would not have sex outside of marriage, so divorce and remarriage was the only option available to Henry if he wanted a son with her. The Bible states that you should not marry your brother's wife, and that is exactly what he'd done, because Catherine used to be the wife of Henry's brother, Arthur. So Henry saw the lack of sons as punishment from God for doing just that. Some people did not like the Catholic Church because it didn't reflect the Bible, so maybe Henry genuinely felt this way too and genuinely thought Protestantism was better. Henry had asked the Pope to annul, or declare it never happened, his marriage to Catherine so he could remarry, but the Pope refused. So really Henry had no other choice other than to start his own church. For money, I went with the fact that he was fighting an expensive war with France, and the Catholic Church is very rich, so if Henry became head of the church, he could and did take their money. And finally, in the middle, I put at the time of divorce from Catherine, Anne was already 6 months pregnant. They had married in secret beforehand. And I've popped that in the middle because it links to all of them. So it's about religion, because obviously any child born before marriage is illegitimate and cannot be the next king or queen of England. It's about power, because it's about children and being next in line to the throne. And it's about money, because an illegitimate child cannot inherit any money, so it's a problem. So tick any you got correct. If you need to adjust a few, it's not the end of the world. Feel free to just draw some arrows. We're now going to have a look at purpose, which is a crucial skill in history to work out why something was made. That's what purpose means. Why was it made? So this is spoken by Catherine on the day Henry would decide her fate. This 20 years I've been your true wife or more, and by me you have had divers or many children, although it hath pleased God to call them out of this world, which hath been no fault in me. So that source is basically saying that Catherine's been a true wife to Henry, and she's given him loads of children, but unfortunately they have all, apart from Mary, died. And that's not her fault. So that's what you need to think about and type into the chat box, please. What is she saying, and why is she saying this? Why is she saying she has been a true wife and has given him lots of children on that particular day? And if you'd like a challenge, how far do you agree with the interpretation that wanting a son was the only reason Henry broke with Rome? So to answer a how far question, do you completely agree, do you somewhat agree, or do you disagree with this idea? So pause the video and type directly into the chat box, what is the purpose of this source? Why did she write it? Okay guys, well done for completing the lesson. As always, there is a show my homework quiz. You need to do it 3 times. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I will see you soon. Bye!